awaken the etheric body, as we amplify the energies flowing through the chakras, we actually feel healthier. We feel more vitalized. We feel more present, more grounded. So what happens during this 3 days of darkness is literally that these 5 bodies become separated from each other for a brief moment in time. We're talking about maybe a few hours or maybe 2 or 3 days. And so at this point, we basically go into kind of a coma where we don't really, it's more like falling asleep to the physical identity. And then once the magnetic field reverses, it's a re-embodiment process where the soul can then reintegrate through these 5 bodies into the physical body, all the way down into the earth. And what we're talking about here is literally a rebirth of Gaia. And this happens approximately every 12,000 years. So we're not just talking about, a small thing. We're talking about a huge process that hasn't taken place for 12,000 years. And every time this happens, there's an evolutionary leap. New DNA can be activated, new potentials can be created, new species can be born. And within the human species, new possibilities can be incarnated. So this is really what we're preparing for. And the reason I talk about the next 2 or 3 years as being critically important is because these things are coming into alignment now. We're receiving energies from the galactic center through cosmic rays, what Peter Donner spoke of as cosmic electricity, which can be literally felt and experienced and measured in the Earth's upper atmosphere. They're coming lower and lower into the lower atmosphere, penetrating the Earth body and the human body. We can actually perceive this in polar regions with the increase of aurora borealis activity. And even what's interesting is new colors being seen in the aurora. So, usually when we look at the aurora borealis, what we notice is green and purple streams. Now we're beginning to see pink. And pink is a direct reflection of these cosmic rays as they come in. So these are physical, measurable effects. What's not so measurable is the effects within the human body or any consciousness, any species. But because we are human, we can speak about the human aspects. And so what this is producing is a subtle increase in the Kundalini activation of the subtle bodies. So many people are having these experiences where they suddenly start opening up to having more vivid dreams, more peak experiences, direct connection with high self, channeling, connection with their inner intuition and guidance, opening to new dimensions. Many people are experiencing this and feeling a bit freaked out because it's new or it hasn't been integrated yet. So there's a reaction in the nervous system and in the physical body. There could be dizziness, what people call ascension symptoms. Sometimes it overloads the nervous system, overloads the endocrine system. All this is temporary. As we go through this and integrate this, we're coming into deeper alignment with who we are as divine humans. So, one of my teachers, Sri Aurobindo, speaks about the journey from the animal human consciousness to the human to the divine human. And the divine human is everything we're talking about here, rebirth of humanity, not just spiritually, but also biologically. So we're talking about new senses opening, new potentials becoming possible, the ability to maybe not need to eat food in order to nourish the body. We can receive nourishment from everything around us, from the prana that permeates everything, the sun, the atmosphere, especially when you're in a high vibrational place or in the mountains or near the sea, or just being in the energy of love. As we open our hearts, as we open our soul to higher dimensional frequencies, we can also receive prana. So this is part of what becomes possible. What also becomes possible in the divine human is we don't need to reproduce ourselves in the same way that we have before. It's through procreation. We can simply decide, okay, I want to beam into this planet, and you incarnate yourself within a matter of a few moments. So it doesn't have to go through this 9-month long process. You simply incarnate instantly. You can travel instantly from one place to another place in this dimension as well. So I decide, okay, I want to be in Hawaii, and you're there, within a matter of moments. Star Trek technology, like right now, I happen to be in Goa, on the west coast of India. It's a beautiful beach community. I'm actually taking a course in Kundalini Yoga, which is the awakening of the inner pathways. And, it's like anyone can choose to come. You're dealing with winters in Europe and the US, which are cold and maybe not so easy. And okay, so suddenly you decide to come to Goa and you're here. Or I decide, I want to meet one of you in Colorado, and I'm there. So what we're doing on Zoom in this call together, which is virtual reality, can become physical reality. In fact, what is virtual and what is physical? It's like this is a distinction that we are making, which is relatively artificial. But what if this dimension is also a virtual dimension, and we can actually transform this virtual dimension into something that is a reflection of the soul, a reflection of a higher potential, a reflection of what it means to be a divine human, to be fully awake and incarnate on this planet, just as we are awake and incarnate on other dimensions, other planets, other systems. So these are potentials that, link us to each other, link us to Mother Earth, link us to the universe unconsciously. And now it's becoming more and more conscious. So within the next few years, as we go through this magnetic reversal and the rebirth of Gaia, what we're likely to see is just enormous shifts in our perception of reality. Reality doesn't need to change. The perception of reality changes. And then reality is revealed for what it truly is, which is far beyond what we can perceive with our physical senses so far. So, there are people, clairvoyants, clairaudience, clairsentients, people who are able to attune with the Akashic realms like Jodi, and people who've learned to integrate different aspects of their human self so that it's not separate. Some people refer to enlightenment, some people refer to the word ascension, some people refer to embodiment and descension. It's the same thing, really. It's just different ways of saying the same thing. So as enlightenment is the journey upwards. Embodiment is the journey downwards. So the journey upwards has to do with the physical body, physical matter, reintegrating with spirit. And the journey downwards has to do with the soul incarnating into physical matter, into physical bodies. This is our God-given right. It's what we came for. It's what we chose. And so often many people have come into this earth and not felt really at home, not felt really welcome, not felt connected, just because we're missing something. We're missing who we are, what we already know ourselves to be, which we have experienced in other dimensions, in between worlds or other planets. And now that we're here, it's like, this is not what I signed up for. Um, and what's happening now is that we are becoming more at home. We are coming home to ourselves. We're coming home to this earth in ways that we have only imagined. So this is really something that is collectively taking place and personally. It's happening on a personal level as individual humans, the awakening of a new species, and it's happening on a collective level as Gaia awakens, as Gaia creates new species, as Gaia opens up doorways to higher levels of reconnection. So as you know, there's doorways between the Earth, between Earth and Sun, the Earth and the central star of our galaxy, and across time and space. So as we open up to who we really are, these doorways open up more and more, and consciously. So, much of science fiction is really a prelude to what is to be. So everything that we watched on Star Trek in the 60s and 70s is now happening. Those flip phones that they used on the Starship Enterprise. Now everybody has a mobile phone. The beaming chambers that they used in Star Trek is now going to be available to everybody. It's not external technology necessarily, but it's becoming internalized. As we grow, as we emerge into a new species, these inner technologies start to activate. And I have to say, I already know a few people who are able to use these internal technologies to travel directly across time or across space or both, to live on prana, to nourish the bodies directly and absolutely on prana, who don't need to eat or even drink. And then the possibilities of attuning to aspects of ourselves that free us. We get so restricted on this earth plane as long as we're living in this field of what we call duality or separation, where we feel cut off from each other, cut off from the earth, cut off from the universe, cut off from our divine presence. So as we begin to reconnect, who are we? What are we creating? What are we becoming? It's like we rediscover what we already are in fullness. So this is already happening for many people. And now we're getting ready for a collective awakening. A good example of this, some people may have experienced psychedelic substances or plant medicines, where for brief periods of time you open up to new potentials, doorways open. You see or you perceive other realities. But it's only a glimpse and it's only limited. You still may not be able to travel across space and time. You still may not be able to breathe in other dimensions in the way that you do not require breath or prana from outside. But what if this becomes normal? So there's one thing that happens when magnetic fields collapse. So we're talking about the 3 days of darkness, right? When we go through a magnetic field change. So if this is a collective event and the magnetic field collapses and then reverses so that the soul can drop in, what people say, researchers have said about near-death experiences, is that when the soul, or even death experiences, because it happens to everybody when they die, except that when most people die, they can't come back and report on what's happening. But in near-death experiences, people can leave the physical body and then come back and then report on what was actually taking place. And what people say is that when the heart stops, there's a Merkaba, or a geomagnetic field surrounding the heart, that collapses. When the Merkaba collapses, what's released in the pineal gland within the brain is an endorphin known as DMT. DMT is the substance that's released also with plant medicines like ayahuasca or peyote or with LSD or other psychedelic substances. And when DMT is released, it opens up a doorway between the worlds. So for a temporary moment, your consciousness is no longer restricted to the physical world. You open up to other realms and dimensions. You open up to guidance, to visions, to a more direct experience of reality as it is, because the universe is much more richer than we can experience with our five senses, than we can begin to experience, with our human mind. But then when the doorway is open, it's like this flood of information comes in. It's only limited by how much we can integrate, by how much we're willing to receive. But what if now we're not just talking about an individual event or an individual psychedelic experience, we're talking about a collective experience where the magnetic fields have collapsed, reversed, the DMT has been activated collectively, and then suddenly these doorways are open for all of us. The rainbow bridge has been built between earth and sky. We are bridging between the physical, astral, and causal dimensions. We are being reborn as divine humans. New DNA is permanently awakening within our chromosomes. This is what we are moving into. I remember when I was in Guatemala back in 2009, I think. And, this was a time when everybody was talking about the Mayan calendar. I remember when we talked about the end of the Mayan calendar in December 2012, and what this would mean. For many people, it was the end of time, the end of history, the end of the world, depending on how you saw it. For other people, it was the beginning of something. And it brought up a lot of fear for some people, but it also brought up a lot of hope of new possibilities. So we had all these questions, and we happened to meet one of the Mayan elders, Don Alejandro Cirillo, who is the head of the Mayan Council of Elders. And so we had all these questions that we wanted to ask him about this. And the first thing he said was, don't worry about it, because Western scholars have a linear perspective of a non-linear calendar system, and it doesn't work. It doesn't span across cultures. So what you're talking about is the ending and beginning of a linear version of time. What we are talking about is the ending and rebirth of consciousness. Not ending, but a rebirth, a death and rebirth of consciousness. And then what he said is that in our prophecy, we speak about these 3 days of darkness. And it's not something to be afraid of. It's not something to fear in any way. When we are prepared for this, and these are the conditions now that we're preparing for, this is how we are preparing collectively, through these geomagnetic forces, through the galactic changes that are taking place here. But if we are prepared for it, this is a magnificent, joyful, wondrous, splendid event that can transform everything. There's no need to be afraid. This is what we've come in for lifetimes, preparing for lifetimes. And he said, it's only the most advanced souls that are choosing to be born during this time from across the galaxies to take in this event. to be here for this 3 days of darkness. So it's not an ordinary lifetime. It's not just about being born, going through normal life and work and relationships and children and family and dying. No, it's about deep transformation, new potentials that have not been seen before. We're assisting Gaia in her evolutionary path, in her awakening and rebirth. We are part of Gaia, in fact. We've been invited here by Gaia, Mother Earth, to participate in this. And she's only invited those of us who have chosen to be here, who are warriors, galactic warriors across the universe, who are ready to participate and experience this, who are ready to support and assist in this. So no matter what you're feeling sometimes, sometimes feeling a bit hopeless and helpless and useless on this planet. No, this is our time. Our time is here. We can look at it from all these different perspectives, but essentially it's our willingness. Are we ready? And if we are ready, what do we choose now? So if we are aware of the big picture, then we have the tools to choose something that is more relevant to this time, instead of going back into the past, into trauma. Basically, trauma is the habit, the conditioning we have about perceiving reality based on the past. So something happened in the past, and so the future is going to be like it was before. So, we've dealt with catastrophes in the past, whether on an Earth level or on a human level, species level, or an individual level, and so we expect the same for the future. No, we don't need to. We are choosing, co-creating, we're making choices now based on something that we haven't seen in the past, that is part of a new evolution that we are co-creating with Mother Gaia. We're co-creating with Shakti, the universal spirit. So this is our time. And if we remember who we are as universal consciousness, this is a grand time. If we don't remember who we are, this is the time to remember. Either way, we choose to be here. We have chosen to be here. We've been invited to be here by Mother Earth. And so don't please ever feel like you are insignificant, not good enough, or don't belong here. The fact that you're here means that you belong here. The fact that you are here means that you choose to participate in this great experiment. And no matter whether you call yourself awake or not, we are awakening. We're all awakening. We're all in a relative process of awakening, which includes enlightenment and embodiment, which includes ascension and descension. So here we are. What a great time to be alive. And so, we're right in this time of preparing for the longest night, the solstice. And as everyone recognizes, sometimes the longest night or the darkest part of the night happens just before the opening of a new wave of light, a new wave of consciousness. So the solstice is about rebirth of consciousness. This third anniversary of the magic box is about another rebirth of what's possible for Gaia. And here, as we enter into 2023, can we set our intentions? Can we make a real clear goal for ourselves and for the earth? What is it that we truly want now? A daily task, um, that we can commit ourselves to. A soul choice that we can commit ourselves to. Maybe keep a journal, write these things down. This is the time for, they call it New Year um, intentions. There's a name that I forget. Resolutions. You're making a New Earth resolution now. What am I here to participate in as part of the New Earth? What can I support? How can I support the Earth? As a living being, not just as a piece of dirt beneath our feet, as a living consciousness that's speaking to us, communicating with us all the time. And that is inviting us now to participate in this rebirth. So let's move on to a time of questions and responses, sharings.
Sure. Kiara, I have a quick question. I wanted to ask a little bit more about the 3 days of darkness. The 3 days of darkness, if I understand correctly, are going to occur when we have the magnetic reversals. And is this when our physical body will separate from the light body and come back together? I've heard quite a few different versions of this, and I was wondering if you could share just a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so this is something we're just beginning to learn about and explore. So, the ancient prophets like the Inca and the Mayan elders that I spoke with, they didn't really make that connection with the magnetic collapse and reversal. They just said 3 days of darkness. I even asked them, is this literally 3 days? Is it metaphorical? And they said, oh, we don't know, but it's 3 days. The reason that I say that it's literal 3 days and that it's connected with the magnetic field collapse and reversal is because of my own research into the magnetic or the geomagnetic shifts that are repeated every 12,000 years. So this is a cyclical process. The cycles that the Hindus talk about, the yugas, are also a 12,000 year cycle. So every 12,000 years, we go through the movement from Satyuga to Kali Yuga, or from Kali Yuga to Satyuga. So it's actually 24,000 years in two 12,000 year waves. And then other people, have done other research with galactic superwaves coming in, what that means. As this wave travels through the solar system, it creates a ripple effect, which is called the galactic sheet. So Ben Davidson, Paul LaViolette, Joseph Farrell, Graham Hancock, what's his name? Gary Vogt. Many of these researchers have been looking at different aspects from science and cyclical research, and looking at catastrophism, like what's happened in the past. What did these cycles bring to the Earth when these galactic superwaves or when these solar micronova events took place before? What happened? What is the relationship between magnetic reversals or excursions and ice ages, the beginning or ending of ice ages? Another thing happening right now is that we're stepping into what's called the grand solar minimum, which is the opposite of global warming. Global warming is done, it's over, it's finished. We're now moving into a global cooling period. We're breaking records every year now for the coldest places, the coldest winters, the coldest summers on this planet. This winter could perhaps be much colder than what we've experienced in the past. And every winter could become increasingly cooler, because what's happening is that as we go through what's called the Milankovitch cycles, which are several cycles that coordinate together, which are so Earth's in relationship with Earth moving around the sun, we go through periodic ice ages. And these ice ages have to do also with magnetic reversals. Now, the difference between a reversal and an excursion, reversals are much more rare. So people talk about the last reversal took place about 750,000 years ago. Excursions are more common. Reversals are when the magnetic field of the Earth flips north, south, south, north, and remains that way, relatively speaking. Excursions are when they flip, but then return back within a few thousand years to its original position. And these are not necessarily 180 degrees, but some researchers like Ben Davidson say are 90-degree flips. So the new polarity of the Earth would not be in the North Pole, in the Arctic, South Pole, and the Antarctic, but in what's relative, the Devil's Triangle and the Devil's Triangle in the Bermuda, or the Bermuda Triangle and the Devil's Triangle. So the Devil's Triangle is sort of near Bali, and the Windrider triangle is in the Caribbean. These could be the position of the new magnetic polarities. Remember, we are not talking about physical, geographical polarities now. We're talking about magnetic polarities. The magnetic polarity, on occasion, could lead to what's called crustal plate displacements. So this is another very interesting phenomenon, where when there's a decrease or collapse of the Earth's magnetic field, there's a layer between the outer crust of the Earth and the magma just beneath this crust, which is normally solid. You know, there's different layers of the Earth, the crust, the magma, and different cores. So what happens when the magnetic field collapses, there's this layer in between liquefies. And so what happens is, like, imagine a tangerine orange where the outer skin can slide over the inner orange. The same thing happens. The outer crust slides around the mantle. So it can very rapidly shift the position of the crust relative to the original geographical axis, which means we could have tsunamis, we could have earthquakes, volcanoes, massive catastrophes. Not destructive enough that it means the end of the Earth, but it could mean a civilizational collapse. It could mean a lot of species, going through catastrophe and rebirth. These are things that have happened in the past. It could happen again. My sense is that because we're also going through a dimensional shift corresponding with this physical shift, it doesn't have to be so catastrophic. So we don't have to see massive tsunamis, earthquakes, volcanoes, earth changes. We can see enormous changes in consciousness, but without having to go through all the catastrophes. So this is what happens when we shift from physical dimension or third dimensional physicality to fifth dimensional, higher fourth dimensional physicality. So matter remains matter, but it's not so much physical matter as we see it through our physical senses, but higher dimensional matter, which can still be perceived and interacted with, but through higher senses. So appearances are the same. We still interact with matter. We still go to the beach. We still, travel to beautiful places. We still interact with each other, but it's a different vibrational structure. So because we're going through a dimensional shift, we don't necessarily have to go through earth changes at this time. We'll still go through the 3 days of darkness, but the effects will not be catastrophic. So that's why all these Hopis, Mayas, Incas, Tibetans have spoken about the 3 days of darkness in such a positive way. So yes, we go through this geomagnetic shift, which activates the pineal gland, which activates the DMT, which opens up the Merkaba to higher dimensions. We begin to um, change our relationship with our subtle bodies and our causal bodies. And yes, eventually more of the soul residing on the causal level can incarnate for all of us.
And so during that particular period, once we have gone through the approximate 3 days and we wake up, I assume that we're going to see and notice a big difference, or what are they predicting? How are they predicting humanity may respond to this?
Yeah, so I would say, that at the end of this, when the repolarization takes place, when the incarnational descent takes place, that we will be seeing a different world. This new world already exists on a higher dimensional level. It's not like we have to create this new world. It already exists. But our consciousness has made a bridge from third dimensional to fifth dimensional. It doesn't mean that everybody on Earth is necessarily going to see this or experience this. There are going to be people for whom this is too much of a step, too much of a leap, and they might find that their soul contract is over in this incarnation and leave. And they simply come back in new bodies at a different time and experience this just as vividly. But it may be that a lot of people leave this planet during this time or before this time. That's happening already. I mean, this is a new way of perceiving what's happening with the jab and the results of it, which I'm not going to speak about because this might go on YouTube. But it's something to consider. There's nothing outside of divine plan. So those of us who have been feeling really dismal about the jab and how many people are going to go through extreme effects from that, which has been shown now in medical journals, which has been spoken about in different documentaries and movies by medical doctors and other people. Yeah, this may be part of Gaia's plan also. The deep state, all their agendas, Agenda 2030, for instance. Yes, this may be part of Gaia's plan as well. Nothing is outside of divine plan. So we live in a world where things appear to be in duality, but from a higher dimensional perspective, it's all part of divine plan. So I really think that it doesn't need to take very long. We will simultaneously and very rapidly shift into a new Earth reality, which already exists. It's just that our circuits and our channels, our senses, haven't made that connection. And once the soul incarnates into biological form, once the DNA activates in new ways, then very rapidly we'll start to experience this. Again, when I say rapidly, I'm not saying, okay, 3 days of darkness is over and instantly they're going to be able to, see everything or experience everything. It's just like a baby. When a baby is born, it doesn't mean it's an adult right away, but it's learning, it's stepping into a new world, a new reality, new potentials. And gradually, it may take a few hundred years before the new human as a species has fully emerged. But it may also mean that those of us who choose to be here for this or are incarnated for this, we can live in these bodies for much longer than is currently possible. We can remain in these physical bodies for 500 years, 1,000 years, because what's causing aging at this time is basically resistance. There's basically a vibrational frequency that's keeping our cells from functioning optimally. And once those restrictions are gone, which includes, physical events such as the chemtrails or um, denatured foods, GMO crops, and so on. Once those limitations are also gone, that supports us in other ways to basically immortalize the physical form. And many masters have already experienced this in the past. They still hang out with us. Many of them kind of not visibly. They may be hiding out in the Himalayas, or they may be on their own, living in their, seclusion, but still participating and still influencing human affairs. So that's what's that we are. So there are some who are setting the template, and then after the 3 days of darkness, we get to experience this collectively over time.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, thank you. Let's see, Jody, I'm going to go ahead and bring you up, and I will bring myself up, but I also am going to go ahead and open up if anyone has a question. I'll go ahead and recognize you now and just bring you up to ask your question as well. So does anyone have a question for Kiara? Okay, Jody.
I think you already answered it, but I was thinking, because we're seeing so many people in large groups, like a big fire or a big something, or hurricanes, or do you feel like that was kind of set up before in terms of their, they would stay for a certain amount of time and then these people would leave because of what's happening here? Maybe they can help more on the other side, or just not want to be. I mean, you kind of answered that already, but I was wondering about that. But also, I noticed for myself, I've become so sensitive to everything because I've heightened sensitivity in all of my, every part of me. So, especially recently in the last month or so, I've been noticing I could see my field as if this is being put over here and this is being put over here. It's like reorganizing something. But I'm noticing, like right now, my neck is out and my voice is out. So I just keep getting these little kind of things. Do you feel that that's like the adjustment to coming into our bodies to be able to be at the frequency, to hold the higher frequency of our own soul coming into itself as well, so they can be collaborative and be in connection to the earth?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you've spoken that so eloquently, but this is exactly what's going on for many people. So those who are already attuned to this are able to access this more easily because there's no resistance and there's no fear. For those who are just awakening, it can bring up some fear because it's unfamiliar. So it's beautiful, but it's a little bit scary because, oh my God, am I losing my mind? What's happening to me? Am I losing my vision? Because, sometimes when your inner vision opens up, your clairvoyant vision opens up, your outer vision goes, your physical vision goes through some changes. Or you start feeling disoriented and dizzy and start having headaches and body aches, or, something. So when we talk about dis-ease, we're not just talking about disease that's negative or detrimental to the body. We're also talking about the orientation of the nervous system, of the all the systems, and particularly the Kundalini system, the nadis, the 72,000 subtle channels that feed the physical body through the etheric body. And the spine, the 3 nadis that run along the spine are the key to this. So these energies that are awakening within us travel up and down the spine. And so, a lot of people may start having these experiences where, physically they feel a little bit antsy, or they have these stutters, or what's the word for it? Yeah. And so it's a little bit scary sometimes, but it's also accompanied by so much peace, so much joy, and so much love, so much a sense of beauty and rightness, and knowing that this is what we've chosen. So, it allows people to connect with the soul in a new way. And it will also bring up, so what happens is the more light comes in, it also stimulates more of the darkness. When there's light, it brings up the shadow. So that's the other side of this. So for some people, it's like, oh my God, I just had this beautiful experience and now I'm feeling crazy. I'm feeling, lost. I'm feeling like I've lost it. What happened? Did I do something wrong? No, it's just a process of integration. So when you have these light experiences, it activates the higher chakras, especially the seventh, sixth, fifth, and heart. Then, as the light brings up the darkness, whatever's already in the subconscious or unconscious aspects of our being, which hasn't been penetrated yet, which needs to be released before we can fully experience our totality, that comes up to the surface. And this could be old stuff, childhood stuff, even before we're born, or it could be on the level of an entire species, thousands of years of human history. All this starts coming up. What we're seeing in the world politically, economically, socially, that's also part of this. It's ancient human karmic energies coming to the surface. The US is going through its Pluto return right now. So Pluto, the US chart, Pluto is a 248-year cycle, and we are now 248 years from the foundation of that country. So, it's 1776 plus 248 is the time we're in now. And so the US is going through a Pluto return, which is karmic balancing, death, and rebirth. So the US also represents the entire planet in a way, because it's a melting pot of all species, all races on this earth. So we are going through a collective rebirth, the Pluto return, which is bringing up all the stuff from deep, deep inside, which has never before seen the light. So it's a bit uncomfortable. Yes, it will be. But it's also what's necessary. So when you're experiencing the dark aspect of it, it doesn't mean the light is gone. It just means the light is shining in deeper. And that's important to remember in this process. And along with that, yes, you experience more beauty, more life, more joy, more, creativity. If you are an artist or writer, if you're, simply alive to nature, you see things in a way that you haven't seen before. Your heart opens in ways that you haven't opened before. So it's a time to be more fully alive, to be more fully in love. Did I answer all of your questions? I think I missed something from the beginning. I can't remember what.
No, it was good. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Beautiful. Okay, Susie, you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
Yeah, Kiara, I haven't heard you speak for a while, and I just love it. I do. It's such a good vibe. And about these 3 days, I've studied it for so long. And one of my professors, when I was getting my doctorate in metaphysics, this was like 12, 15 years ago, he said that it would be in line with this, with the, the Earth poles switching. And he said, it was so bad. He said, the gravity would be so bad that we'd be on the ground and we'd have to, for 3 days. But then I heard everything from that to, I think David Wilcock said, the more conscious you are, the more, in other words, for some, if you're really conscious, it'll be the solar flash will come and you'll just get more enlightened. So I think that's kind of like what you're saying is this, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like the more prepared we are, the better we're going to be for whatever it's going to be. And whether it's metaphorical dark or not, we don't know. But because I think it's 186,000 years and it's before recorded history, the last time the earth shifted like that, the poles shifted. So I don't know. I just think it opens so many doors listening to you talk. Which one is the best? Which one is the best? Just be prepared, right?
Well, be prepared and be proactive. So also remembering that we are like the yeast in the bread. So it takes a few people who are able to step ahead of the crowd, who can process these changes inside our own bodies. And then that allows the collective to also go through this. So, we are part of that, the tip of the spear, if you want to see it that way. It does take a few people who are willing to go through the hard stuff, because the stuff is hard in the beginning. So after that, it becomes easier and easier for everybody else. I don't think it's going to require extreme death and devastation or catastrophe, just because we are shifting dimensions at the same time as we're going through these cyclic changes. These cycles happen, as some people say, every 12,000 years. And then there's part cycles, every 6,000 years, 3,000 years, 1,500 years. And then you could say every 24,000 years, 48,000 years. There's cycles that go in these ratios. And many of them have taken place once we dropped into the physical dimension. And that's why we've seen so many massive floods, so many massive fireballs, so many extinction level events on this earth. But this particular event, because we're shifting dimensions at the same time, will not be catastrophic in the same way. You'll still hear about this from various sources that it's going to be catastrophic. Even Edgar Cayce talked about the pole shift being relatively catastrophic. But my seeing is that because it's a simultaneous process with the dimensional shift, that the same energy that's available for creating the physical catastrophe now becomes available for creating the dimensional shift. So the 3 days of darkness is like a trigger point. It's a flash point to help create this. You mentioned also the solar flashes or solar micronova, as they also referred to. This is also a very intense event. Again, this happens every 12,000 years, plus minus. A micronova is different from a nova. A nova is what happens on a sun at the end of its lifetime. A micronova happens within the sun periodically as part of shedding a skin. So it's like a snake shedding a skin periodically. It's not the end of the sun, but it can create enormous solar winds which affect the earth, which affect the magnetic field of the earth, which can change the magnetic polarity of the earth, like we're speaking about. So they're all related: the solar micronova, the galactic superwave, the magnetic or geomagnetic excursion on this earth, and consciousness shifts, along with periodic beginnings or endings of ice ages and so on. So, there's many cycles converging, but what makes this one unique is the fact that it's also a dimensional shift.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Susie. Awesome question. Okay, does anyone else have a question for Kiara? Just go ahead and use that little reactions button and raise your hand. Okay.
Yeah, Jody?
Another question. Hey, Jody.
Hi. Just wondering, you seem so grounded and so integrated, as so And I'm somewhat like that to some degree, but in terms of really, I'm much more open out here. So I'm getting to coming into, I'm doing all this work to come into my body more fully. Do you have any suggestions? Just, I do just a little bit of yoga as well and those kind of things. I'm just curious because the people that I do work for in terms of, doing sessions and whatever, as they're opening up, most of them want to just meet the guides and, that kind of thing. And I feel like you have to bring everything through the body, like you were saying at the beginning. So do you have any suggestions for people about, I don't know if it's simple ways, but ways to sort of be more aware of connecting to the body first?
Yeah, that's such an excellent question, Susie. And, we could spend an entire session on this, and maybe we could at a future time. But just in brief, what I would say is what keeps us from being embodied more than anything else is fear. So if we can look at our fears more directly, there's fears that are connected with the root chakra, which have to do with survival. There's fears that are connected with the second chakra, which have to do with relationship with others around us. There's fears that have to do with the third chakra, that have to do with expressing ourselves and being who we are. There's fears having to do with the fourth chakra, which have to do with our ability to give and receive love, expressing ourselves and risking the limelight. Are we ready to bring our vision into fruition, to make things happen, or is there a fear of failure? There's fears around the expression of who we are from these levels, the third eye and crown chakra. Marianne Williamson says it so beautifully. It's like we are often more afraid of a light than we are of the darkness. We are more afraid of truly expressing who we are because we're afraid people may not like us or trust us or want us around because we remind them of, who they're not. And the truth is, all those fears are simply a reflection of one thing. It's a lack of trust. It's a lack of trust in who we are already. It's not about becoming something that isn't already here. It's realizing who we already are. And if we can connect with that more and more, then those fears automatically start to release. As fears release, our nervous system opens up. As the nervous system opens up, the embodiment can happen. The 5 bodies begin to integrate. The etheric body and the prana that's available to us creates a level of wellness and health that can then, again, support the integration of our mental, emotional bodies and our soul. So all these things go together, but I really do feel like if we understand the bigger picture, if we know what's happening and why, that already helps us to dissipate the first layers of fear. Then we can go consciously through this journey. Then when fears come up, we can simply be a witness. Okay, I'm just watching this. Who I am is not affected by this. And you're not alone, you're not lost, and you're part of a larger plan. Once we know that, absolutely deeply know that, then fear can begin to dissipate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. All right. One more time. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Kiara, I'm wondering, before I come to you and bring Jody back up for final comments, would you do us a favor and bless us with one of your beautiful meditations?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yeah, I'd love
awesome.
to.
Thank you.
So, all right, so let's do a meditation that comes from the Inca tradition in South America. Like many indigenous people, the Inca shamans or priests were not so much locked into a dualistic perception of reality. We tend to see things in terms of good and bad, positive and negative. To them, it was more about whether or not you're in the flow of things or whether you're resisting the flow. If you're in the flow, then you create balance. If you're resisting the flow, you create imbalance. So it's not good and bad, positive and negative, but balanced or out of balance. If anything is out of balance, it can be brought back into balance. So, when people talk about good and bad, it tends to be polarizing. It's one or the other. When you talk about balance and out of balance, then you're more talking about, harmonizing. And it simply means awareness. So for the Incas, they came up with this very beautiful and simple practice to bring yourself into balance. And this had to do with electrical and negative energies. So they talked about the three worlds, the upper world, the middle world, and the lower world. The upper world is your connection with the world of spirit, which extends out to the physical universe and other dimensions as well. The lower world has to do with nature and Mother Earth and the elemental kingdoms. So we're talking about nature spirits, the elves, the fairies, the dragons, the beings that work with physical matter. So we're talking about not just the four elements of fire, earth, air, and water, but also ether, which are the connection with the invisible worlds. And then the middle world is the human level. So it's our thoughts, our feelings, our human personalities, our memories, what gives us a personal sense of identity. So in this meditation, we start with an awareness of the middle world. So the way we do this is by imagining a bubble of light that completely surrounds the physical body. So extending out about 6 feet or 2 meters, if you're in Europe, in all directions, beyond the physical body. So this is also known as the luminous egg. So Carlos Castaneda, some of you may know of him, read his works. He talks about, Don Juan talks about this luminous egg. So this is like a bubble of light, which represents the boundary of the middle world. Once you establish this, then you go above this egg, and there's a window, a circular window, directly over the top of this bubble. And you open that window. And as soon as you do so, cosmic light starts to pour in. They refer to this as cosmic sunny. And the thing about this is that it's electrical in nature, and it's the natural flow of life through the universe. It's just there. When you open the window, it pours in. Like you open the blinds and the sun pours in. You don't need to create it or visualize it. It's just there. So it pours in, pours through the physical body, pours through the whole bubble. It's a very high frequency of light. And as it pours through, it also starts to break up, identify, and release what they call hucha, which is density. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be mental. So we're talking about emotional trauma, we're talking about physical dis-ease, we're talking about mental imbalances or conditioning. As this divine light, cosmic light, starts to pour in through that window, through the physical body, through the bubble, and into the earth, it starts to purify consciousness. And then what happens in response to this downward flow, there's a reciprocal flow that comes up from the earth. Again, this is not something that you have to visualize or create. It's simply a natural response from the earth to the sky. So what they say also, so the first principle in the Inca tradition is nothing is positive and negative. It's either in flow or against the flow. The second principle is that whenever energy moves in one direction, there's a natural response in the other direction. So when energy moves downwards, there's a natural response upwards. So then you have Sani coming up from the earth, through your feet, up through your body, up through the bubble, through that window, and up to the universe. This Sani is magnetic in nature. So the downward flow is electrical, the upward flow is magnetic, and the magnetic energy feels differently than the electrical. The electrical is high frequency, very activating, stimulating, purifying. The upward flow is slower, it's nourishing, it's healing, it's grounding. And you begin to feel that through your body as this magnetic energy comes out. So eventually what happens is that the magnetic and the electrical start to interact. And then the whole Merkaba, which is your connection between the 5 bodies, expands. So then you start naturally connecting with the causal body. So the physical, etheric, emotional, mental bodies, which are bounded by this bubble, expand out into the causal body. The bubble itself begins to expand further and further out. Eventually, you can go all the way out to become at one with the Merkaba of the Earth, of the solar system, of the galaxy, of the universe, as far out as you want to go. This can become your way of being on a daily level, moment by moment level. So this is the practice. So, it takes longer to actually explain it than to do it. So let's do it together. So just imagine now that you're inside a bubble of light. Your back is straight, your breathing is natural, circular. You visualize this bubble of light around you until it takes on a life of its own and becomes just luminous egg. And clairvoyants can actually see this. If you expand your vision, you can actually sense this. So 6 feet out or 2 meters out, above you, below you, all around you. And then over the top of this bubble, become aware of this window. So it's a circular window that can be opened and closed at will. So just like in the body of the earth, you have this bubble, different layers within the atmosphere. So imagine this being the ionosphere. And then there's a polar opening, which is like the window, the size of the window. And the same way now, imagine the size of your window expanding with your intention. You open up this window as wide as you can. And as soon as you do so, you begin to experience this powerful stream of light, like a waterfall, pouring in through that open window, pouring in through your body, pouring in through your bubble. It's beautiful, high vibrational, intense frequency of light. It starts to clear and release layers of hucha, as they call it, density, which some people might call negativity, except it's not negative in the Inca tradition. And as this density is released into the earth, Mother Earth simply receives it as compost, transforms it. So it's like standing under a waterfall. You're just in that flow, experiencing this moving through your physical body and the entire bubble. So the lower four bodies. And all you're doing is keeping that window open as wide as possible. There's no effort involved because it's a natural process. As little effort required as receiving sunlight on your face. And now remember the principle of reciprocity. So as this electrical frequency moving downwards connects with the earth, immediately there's a response. So you don't need another window below your feet. This reciprocity means that as soon as the electrical force, the Sani, connects with the earth, the magnetic forces come up from deep inside the earth, up through your feet, moving up through every cell of your body, up through the bubble, then up through that window to the sky. So if the downward energy is like standing under a waterfall, the upward energy is like standing over a fountain. This fountain comes up from below you. You're feeling this warm, gentle, healing and nourishing energy, feeding every cell of your body, feeling all the etheric, emotional, mental systems, different vehicles of your soul. And gradually you feel more and more relaxed, peaceful, at one. Susie, earlier, or Jody, you were asking about being grounded. This is an excellent way to feel grounded. It's like as this magnetic energy comes up through your feet, it's like developing your roots, your umbilical connection with the heart of Mother Earth. Many of you may find that your bodies feel a bit heavy, especially your legs. And that's fine. Many of you might find that it's hard to move. And this is natural. As the magnetic Sani comes up through your body, there's a sense of stillness and groundedness that you start to experience. So spend a couple of minutes just experiencing this magnetic energy pouring upwards. And now bring your awareness to the fact that the electrical Sani moving downwards and the magnetic Sani moving upwards are happening simultaneously, as long as that window above your head is open. And as these electrical and magnetic forces interact with each other, you find that the bubble starts to expand. The four lower bodies begin to merge into the fifth body, the causal body, which the Hindus refer to as the bliss body, the Ananda Maya Kosha. And as this begins to happen, you start feeling the sense of joy, the sense of bliss, the sense of divine union, divine love, moving through your entire body, your entire bubble. And your bubble begins to expand further and further and further out. Expanding out through this space that you happen to be in. Expanding further and further out through the ecosystem, through the continent, through the planet. And all you're doing again is keeping that window above your head open, wider and wider. As the bubble expands, you find the window becomes even wider. As the window becomes wider, the bubble expands further. Until eventually you find yourself merging with the body of the earth. Your physical, human identity and the planetary identity merge together. At this point, you become aware that you are the earth. You are Gaia. That Gaia is not something outside of us. It's who we are. It's that interconnectedness. It's that resonant field that holds all the species of life on every dimension on this planet. That Gaia, just as much as we do, has her physical body, etheric body, emotional, mental, and soul body. So what does it feel now to become one with Gaia, as Gaia? To merge your human identity with your planetary identity. It's a strange mixture of lightness and heaviness, expansion and groundedness. And you can continue to expand out, if you wish, across the solar system. As that window widens, you continue to expand. Beyond the solar system, across the Milky Way galaxy, and beyond the Milky Way into the sea of galaxies on so many dimensional levels across time and space. Let yourself move out to the very boundaries of time and space, the very boundaries of this known universe. And then beyond that, into the unknown. Into the invisible, the primordial. This primordial realm that exists even before time and before space ever existed. And as you experience this primordial realm, realizing this is also who you are. This is the self with the capital S. And so many speak about the I am, presence, beyond qualities, beyond time, beyond space, beyond distinctions of any kind. The one self that moves through all things, that is all things. So you're experiencing all these aspects of you simultaneously now, your personal self, your planetary self, solar self, galactic self, universal self, and cosmic self, the primordial self. They're all interwoven within each other, like those Russian dolls. Who I am is all of that. That I am. So as you enter into this presence, notice also that there's an opening within your pineal gland. The DMT is activated, creating this conscious bridge across these dimensions, across these levels of identity. And who you are, who I am, is all of it. It's not just the human, it's not just the cosmic, it's not just the planetary, the solar. The universe is about interconnectedness. And there's electrical and magnetic fields crisscrossing across the entire universe through every dimension. And now experience yourself in your human body, as a human identity, noticing that these other identities remain with you. As long as that window remains open, you're connected across the dimensions. So in the Inca tradition, you're not just the middle self, and you don't just travel into the upper world or the lower world. You're simultaneously present in all three. Spirit and matter are expressions of the same light. The five bodies interweave as vehicles of the same self. And ultimately, there is only one of us here. I am. So keeping that window open now, you can begin to open your eyes, become aware of your physical senses, your connectedness with the earth and life around. You can practice this exercise anytime you wish, and each time the window remains open longer and longer. Just practice until eventually, and this is what embodiment is about, the window can remain open 24/7.
Kiara, thank you so much. That was absolutely beautiful. I'm going to definitely go back and listen to this again. There was so much wonderful information. So I really appreciate your stepping away from your retreat and coming to share your wisdom and beautiful meditations with us, and agreeing to answer some of our questions. I thank you so much. I'm just wondering if there's any final words that you would like to leave us with.
What a joy to share this time together. And thank you, Sheila, for the CAN, Conscious Awakening Network, where all of us can meet virtually in this way, along with so many millions around the world. So I'm so grateful to be on this planet at this time. What a joy to be here at this time of awakening. And I'd also say that I have a website, kiarawindrider.net, and YouTube channel, Kiara Windrider, one word. I also have several books that can be accessed through Amazon under Kiara Windrider. So just stay connected with each other, and let's meet up again in the Conscious Awakening Network. And there's so many wonderful teachers and celebrants here on this channel. So I'm grateful that we can find this opportunity to connect in this way.
Beautiful, thank you. And you also can be found on the Conscious Awakening Network under Age of Gaia. So beautiful. Yes, so thank you so much. And Jody, do you have any final comments?
I just want to say thank you to Sheila for even doing all of these things and inviting me to be part of this. And Kiara, you're just always beautiful. You have such beautiful energy, and I'm so grateful. I love the part of describing the shifts that are taking place. Because I've known about all these things, but it sort of put it all together. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Sheila.
Yeah.
Thank you, all the rest of you.
Yes, and thanks to everyone for all their wonderful questions. And hey, Phil, I see you are here with us. Good to see you. So everyone, thank you so much for being here with us, and I wish you a wonderful holiday season, a wonderful winter solstice, and hope you take time to light a candle and, just release all of the old of this year, call in some new energy to help you as you walk next year. So thank you so much. Thanks to all of our, every family out there watching, whether it's in the audience or you're watching on replay or you're watching it on the Conscious Awakening Network. And if you want to join us here, the Galactic Alliance, you can sign up on our website at thegalacticalliance.org. You can also check us out on the Conscious Awakening Network.org. And however you choose to join us, thank you for being here, and we send you much love. So until we're back together again next time, namaste, everyone. Have a beautiful week and happy holiday season. Much love. Thank you all.